She came to the reunion quiet and plain. They laughed at her like it was still a game. But what if the girl they mocked now owned everything around them? One night, one secret, one unforgettable reveal. Watch to find out what happened next in this beautiful story. Hello, family. Welcome to Storytime Mutually. Kindly subscribe to my YouTube channel for more interesting stories. Like and share this video to your friends and loved ones. Your support and engagement encourage me to post more videos. Thank you as you do so. Sit back, relax as we dive into the story. The sky was gray and heavy with rain as the car rolled slowly into Glen Hill, a small town tucked between sleepy hills and old pine trees. Water danced on the windshield, while soft jazz played inside the black Mercedes. The car was spotless, shining like it had just left the showroom. It stopped in front of a tiny gas station near the town's edge. Lady Thompson sat in the back seat, staring out the window. Her pale fingers tapped softly on her lap. She wore a white wool coat, smooth as cream, with silver buttons that caught the little light of the day. Her blonde curls were pinned neatly at the back of her head, and her lips were a soft rose pink. A pair of diamond earrings sparkled quietly on her ears, though they were small enough not to draw too much attention. That was on purpose. This wasn't a grand return. Not yet. Glen Hill hadn't changed much since she left it 15 years ago. The roads were still cracked. The street signs still tilted. A few new buildings had come up, but most of the town looked tired and forgotten, just like she remembered it. The gas station attendant, a teenager chewing gum with a bored look, walked over to her window. He didn't recognize her. She didn't mind. That was the point. No need for gas, she said gently, her voice calm. Just directions to the town hall. The boy gave her a lazy glance, then pointed up the road. Straight ahead. Turn left at the bakery. She nodded, rolled the window back up, and the car began to move again. As the town passed by, memories came back like rain on the roof, soft at first, then steady. The park where she used to sit and pretend her empty lunchbox was full. The corner store where her mother once begged for work. The narrow alley where Tasha Green and her friends once laughed at her torn shoes. Back then, Lady was just a quiet girl from a poor family. Her clothes were faded. Her hair was never styled. She was smart in class, but always too shy to speak. People either ignored her or made fun of her. Only one or two classmates had ever been kind, and one of them, she hoped, would be at the reunion tonight. She had come back for that reunion, though she had almost thrown the invitation away when it arrived by mail. It was written on cheap paper, with the school logo barely visible. A simple note: Glen Hill High, class of 2010 reunion. Saturday, 6 p.m. Town Hall. She stared at that letter for days before deciding to go. Not because she wanted to show off. Not because she wanted revenge. But because she needed to face the place she had left behind. She had left Glen Hill with nothing, just a suitcase and a scholarship. She had worked night shifts, skipped meals, coded through the night, and built something no one expected. Over the years, she had made smart moves in the tech world. Patents, mergers, silent partnerships. Now, she was worth more money than most of her old classmates would ever see in their lives. But she never told anyone. She lived quietly in Europe, away from the spotlight. No photos, no interviews. Her companies ran under different names. People called her the ghost investor in the business world. Even Google didn't know her face. Tonight, no one in Glen Hill would know who she really was. Not yet. The car turned the final corner. The bakery stood ahead, still painted yellow, still with a sign that read Graham's Breads. Lady smiled faintly. Mr. Graham had once given her free bread for a whole year when her mother lost her job. She never forgot that. Past the bakery was the old town hall. It looked exactly the same. Red brick walls, wooden doors, and a rusty bell on top. A banner hung above the door in big crooked letters. Welcome back, class of 2010. Lady stepped out of the car. The rain had stopped. The wind was cold, but she didn't shiver. She looked up at the building, eyes calm. Let's see if they remember me, she whispered. Then she walked toward the doors. Not as the girl they once laughed at. but as the woman they never saw coming. Lady pushed the heavy wooden doors of the town hall open. The soft sound of laughter and music spilled into the cool night air. Inside, the lights were warm and golden. Balloons floated near the ceiling, and long tables were covered in cheap white cloth and simple snacks, chips, cupcakes, fruit punch in plastic cups. The smell of buttered popcorn and perfume mixed strangely in the air. She paused at the doorway for just a second. It looked like time had frozen. The same old walls. The same smell of old wood and wax. A slow song played from a speaker near the stage, and a projector flashed photos on the far wall. Pictures from their school days. Smiling faces. Awkward teenage poses. Some with braces. Some with acne. And there she was, too, in the back of the group photo. Head lowered. Hair messy. Forgotten. No one noticed her standing there. Lady walked in quietly. She kept her posture straight, her expression calm. She wore a simple sky blue dress that hugged her waist and fell just below her knees. No glitter. No shine. She had purposely dressed down, no brand names, no jewelry, but her small diamond studs. She wanted to walk into that room as a stranger. Not as a billionaire. Not as anyone important. Just Lady. A few people glanced her way, then looked back. They didn't recognize her. She moved through the room like a ghost, picking up a paper cup of punch and standing by the edge of the room. She watched as her old classmates mingled. Thomas Wills, once the football captain, now balding, laughing loudly, holding a beer. Marcy Young, once head cheerleader, now clearly exhausted, chasing after two small kids. Jenny Moore, Richard Banks, Mike Darden. All familiar faces. They had aged just like she had. Some looked tired. Some looked lost. Then she saw her. Tasha Green, the queen bee of Glen Hill High. Always loud. Always cruel. Dressed tonight in tight red pants and a shiny top that screamed attention. Her hair was still big, dyed a brighter blonde now, and her laughter echoed across the room like bells in a church. Tasha's eyes landed on Lady from across the room. She narrowed them, then whispered something to her friend. They both looked, then laughed. Tasha strolled over slowly, holding a cup of wine. Well, she said, tilting her head. Look who decided to show up. Lady offered a gentle smile. Hello, Tasha. You're Lady, right? Lady Thompson. Tasha's tone was sharp. Her eyes scanned Lady's dress, like a scanner looking for flaws. Didn't recognize you at first. You've, changed. Timed as that, Lady said calmly. True, Tasha said with a smirk.
Some of us moved on.
Some of us moved up. Some just moved back. Her friend giggled behind her. Lady didn't reply. She just sipped her punch, eyes steady. Tasha leaned closer, her voice lower now. Still living in that little shack your family had on Willow Street? Or did it finally fall apart? Lady's hand didn't shake. Her voice didn't rise. She simply looked into Tasha's eyes and said, I'm not living there anymore. Tasha gave a sharp little laugh. Figures. Probably renting some little room in the city. Huh? That's okay. Some people aren't meant for big things. Not all of us can be winners. Lady tilted her head. How have you been, Tasha? That question caught her off guard. Tasha blinked. I've been busy. Sales manager. 2 kids. Husband works night shifts. Lady nodded. That sounds like a lot. Tasha looked confused for a second. It wasn't the reaction she expected. She wanted to get under Lady's skin, the way she used to. But it wasn't working. Anyway, she said, stepping back, don't be shy. Enjoy the food. It's free. Lady watched her walk away, the laughter starting again. Across the room, a group had gathered near the photo wall. Old yearbooks lay open on a table. Someone pointed to Lady's picture. Remember her? A voice said. The quiet one. Wore the same sweater every week. Yeah, another voice said. Didn't she eat alone every lunch? Pretty sure her mom was the one who cleaned classrooms. More laughter. Lady turned away. She walked to the back of the hall, stood near the window, and looked out at the street. The same road where she used to walk home in worn shoes, pretending she didn't hear the jokes behind her. But she heard them. She always heard them. And now, standing here in silence, with their words echoing again, she felt the same sting. She had more money than all of them combined. She could have bought this building. She could have bought their houses. She could have crushed them without even raising her voice. But she didn't. She closed her eyes, took a deep breath. Not tonight. Not like this. Then she heard a familiar voice. Lady. She turned, and there he was. Ben Carter. His hair was a little longer, his shirt a little wrinkled. But his smile was the same. She didn't realize she had been holding her breath until she saw him.
Ben, she said softly.
He smiled.
Wow.
You look amazing. And for the first time all night, she smiled back. Ben Carter stood in front of Lady with a gentle smile. His eyes were warm, kind, just like she remembered. He had always been kind. He wore a simple shirt with rolled-up sleeves and dark jeans, a little paint on his collar. He looked like someone who worked with his hands. Not rich. Not flashy.
Just honest.
I didn't think you'd come, he said. Lady smiled softly. I almost didn't. Well, I'm glad you did, he said, then looked around the room. Not many friendly faces here, are there? Lady followed his gaze. The hall was full of old classmates laughing in small groups, sharing inside jokes and stories from long ago. But none of it felt warm to her. It felt like a room full of people wearing masks. I don't think they remember much about me, she said. Ben gave a short laugh. They remember. They just pretend not to. Lady looked at him. You remembered me. Of course, he said. You sat behind me in math class. You always had ink on your fingers. And you used to hum quietly when you were thinking. She laughed a little, surprised. I didn't know anyone noticed. I did, he said. The music shifted to a slower song. The lights dimmed slightly. Couples began to move to the center of the room to dance. Ben looked at her again. Do you want to get some air? Yes, she said at once. They stepped outside, letting the heavy door close behind them. The cool night air wrapped around them. The wind had settled, and the street was quiet. They walked slowly toward the small garden behind the hall. The flowers were mostly asleep now, petals closed under the dim glow of the street lamp. A wooden bench stood near the fence. Lady sat down, and Ben sat beside her. I used to come here after school, she said, looking at the trees. Just to sit. I didn't want to go home. I remember seeing you once, Ben said. You looked so lost. I wanted to come talk to you, but I didn't know what to say. Lady turned to him. You once gave me your lunch. Ben smiled. Yeah. You looked hungry. I was. That was the only thing I ate that day. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Ben asked softly, So, where did life take you? Lady looked out at the street, her voice calm. Far from here. You always seemed like someone who would go far, he said. She smiled faintly. Most people thought I'd go nowhere. They were wrong, Ben said simply. She turned to him, and for a moment, her guard dropped. Ben, if you had become rich, and you came back here, and they all laughed at you like they did tonight, what would you do? Ben thought for a moment. Honestly, I'd be angry. I'd want to throw it in their faces. Lady nodded slowly. That's how I felt. For a second. But, Ben added, I think I'd remember why I left. And maybe that would be enough. She looked at him, her eyes full of quiet storms. You always had a good heart. Back inside the hall, laughter broke again. A sharp, mocking kind. Lady didn't need to look to know who it was. Tasha. She was standing by the drink table with a group of old friends. A few of them pointed at the photo wall again. Remember that one? Look at her sweater. It had a hole in the elbow. I heard her family didn't even have running water. Some people just never catch up in life. Ben looked toward the noise, his jaw tightening. Lady gently placed a hand on his arm. Don't, she said. He turned back to her, confused. You don't deserve this. I know, she said. But I came to face it, not fight it. Then she looked down at the ground and added softly, They don't know who I am now. And maybe that's a good thing. Why? He asked. Because I wanted to see who they really are. Without the money. Without the name. Just me. Ben nodded slowly, understanding. A door creaked open, and a few more people came out for a smoke, not noticing Lady and Ben in the shadows. They talked loudly about jobs lost, marriages ended, dreams that never happened. Lady listened without speaking. So many of them had laughed at her once. Now they were broken in different ways. Time hadn't been kind. Life had humbled them. She didn't feel angry anymore. She felt something else.
Pity.
Let's go, she said gently. I've seen enough for tonight. Ben stood with her. I'll walk you to your car. As they headed back to the parking lot, Lady glanced one more time at the building behind her. Lights spilled from the windows. Music played, but it all felt so far away now. Ben opened the car door for her. Before stepping in, she turned to him.
Thank you, Ben.
For being real.
For seeing me.
He smiled. I always did. As the car pulled away, Lady looked at the town through the glass, familiar, yet distant. She wasn't that girl anymore. And tomorrow, Glen Hill would finally know it. Lady's car rolled smoothly down the quiet road, leaving the reunion behind. Her hands rested calmly in her lap, but inside, her mind was full of thoughts. The laughter, the mockery, the faces from her past, they all stayed with her. She had faced them, stayed silent, and walked away. She didn't need to prove anything that night. But the truth was it was time they knew. The next morning, Glen Hill woke slowly. Sunday in town was always quiet. Church bells rang softly in the distance and shops opened late. A light breeze moved through the streets. People took their time. Lady rose early. She was already dressed in a black turtleneck and long beige coat by the time the sun touched the window of her hotel room. No makeup, no show. Just calm, steady purpose. Her driver pulled up outside the Graham's bakery just before 9 a.m. It was the same bakery from her childhood, small, cozy, with a bell on the door and the smell of fresh bread spilling out onto the street. She stepped inside, and the bell above the door rang gently. Old Mr. Graham stood behind the counter, his silver hair tucked under a flour-dusted cap. His eyes lit up as he looked up. Lady Thompson? She smiled softly. Good morning, Mr. Graham. He wiped his hands on his apron and stepped around the counter, shaking his head in disbelief. I never thought I'd see you again. You look like you've done just fine for yourself. I've done all right, she said. He studied her closely, then smiled with warmth. Still have that calm way about you, just like when you were little. Lady reached into her coat and took out a folded envelope. She held it out to him with both hands. What's this? He asked. Thank you. For every loaf of bread you gave me. For every morning you didn't ask for money. He opened the envelope. Inside was a check, with 6 zeros.
He stared at it.
His hands began to tremble. This can't be right. It is, she said gently. It's enough to fix the ovens, the roof, and buy the building. You've earned it. Lady, I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything, she said. You were kind to me when no one else was. I never forgot. Mr. Graham's eyes grew misty. He tried to speak again, but no words came. He simply pulled her into a soft, flower-scented hug. I'm proud of you, he whispered. She left quietly after that. But the news spread like fire. By noon, whispers began rising in every corner of Glen Hill. Did you hear what Lady Thompson did for the bakery? She gave him a check that could buy 3 houses. Where did she get that kind of money? I thought she was poor. Someone said she's some tech genius, like a secret billionaire. People who had ignored her at the reunion the night before were now talking about her like she was a mystery from a movie. Tasha Green heard it from her sister, who worked at the local salon. She dropped her coffee cup when she found out. What do you mean she's rich? She asked, face pale. Not rich, her sister whispered. Rich. Like millions. Maybe more. Tasha stared at the wall, remembering every word she'd said to Lady the night before. Still poor, just pretending? Some people just aren't meant for big things? The words echoed in her ears like thunder. By the end of the day, Lady had quietly bought 3 buildings in Glen Hill: the bakery, the old library, and the abandoned warehouse at the edge of town. She signed the paperwork in a small law office, her name barely noticed on the contracts. The employees didn't even know who she was. Just another quiet client. She left behind no cameras. No big press. Just plans, big plans. A tech center in the warehouse, offering job training and paid internships for locals. A free reading and study space in the library, with new computers and internet access. And of course, the bakery would remain open, but now with better tools and staff support. That evening, she returned to the hotel and watched the town from her window. She saw people walking slower, talking faster, wondering, whispering. For 15 years, they had forgotten her. Now they were remembering, and they had no idea what to do with that. She didn't want revenge. She didn't want praise. She just wanted to lift the weight she had carried all these years. And maybe, just maybe, help others carry theirs. The lights in Lady's hotel room were off. Only the soft glow from the street lamp outside lit her face as she stood by the window, arms folded gently across her chest. Below, the town of Glen Hill moved slowly, like a memory she could still touch. She had done what she came to do. She had faced them. She had helped the kind. She had walked away from the cruel. But her heart wasn't as calm as she expected. Not yet. A quiet knock came at the door. She turned slowly. It was just past 7 p.m., and she wasn't expecting anyone. She walked over, opened the door, and there he was. Ben Carter. He stood with both hands in his jacket pockets, a hesitant smile on his face. "I hope it's not too late," he said. "I asked around. I found out you were staying here." Lady stepped aside. "Come in." He entered the room, looking around at the simple furniture and soft light. "Doesn't really look like the place a billionaire would stay," he said with a smile. Lady smiled back. "That's the point." Ben walked over to the small table by the window and looked down at the town. "You did all this, didn't you? The bakery, the tech center, the library." She nodded, quietly. "Why didn't you tell anyone who you were last night?" he asked, turning toward her. Lady sat down slowly. "Because I needed to see it all for what it really was.
Me.
This place. I didn't want to wear the name, the money, the power. I just wanted to know if I still felt small when I walked in that hall." Ben sat across from her. "And did you?" She looked at him for a long time before answering.
Yes.
"For a while. But then, I saw something else." "What?" "The cracks," she said softly. "The pain behind their laughter. The weight behind their words. I used to think they were stronger than me.
Better.
But they weren't. They were just hiding their broken parts better than I could." Ben nodded slowly. "Life hasn't been kind to most of them. Some lost jobs. Some lost marriages. Tasha, her husband left last year. She works 2 jobs now." Lady blinked. "I didn't know that." "Of course not. No one ever talks about the hard parts. They just cover it with jokes and gossip." She leaned back in her chair, looking thoughtful. "I wanted to hurt them, Ben. I really did. Last night, when they laughed at me again, I had this cold fire in me. I wanted to stand up and say, 'I own half this town now. Bow your heads.'" He watched her quietly. "But then I saw the way they looked when they thought no one was watching. The sadness, the fear, the pressure. They aren't proud people. Not anymore. Just tired ones." Ben's voice was gentle. "And instead of revenge, you gave them hope." She looked down at her hands. "I gave them what I wish someone had given me." Silence hung in the room for a moment. Then Ben reached into his coat pocket and took out something small. A piece of torn paper, folded carefully. He placed it on the table between them. "What's this?" she asked. He smiled. "Your old poem. From 10th grade. You dropped it on the floor, one day. I picked it up. I kept it." Lady opened it slowly. The paper was aged and creased, but the words were still there, written in her slanted teenage handwriting. "I carry silence like a sword, but not to fight, only to survive. When they laugh, I close my eyes and dream of places I can thrive." Lady stared at it, tears quietly filling her eyes. You remembered this? She whispered. Ben's voice was soft. I always did. A tear slid down her cheek. I used to be so angry, she said.
At them.
At this town. At myself. But tonight, I feel something else. What? She breathed deeply. Relief. Ben smiled, then reached across the table and gently held her hand. They didn't break you, lady. They just didn't see you. But now they will. And she nodded, tears falling freely now, but not from pain, from relief. The next morning, the clouds hung low over Glen Hill, soft and gray. The air smelled like rain, but it hadn't fallen yet. The whole town seemed to move more slowly, like something important was about to happen. Lady stood in front of the mirror in her hotel room, fastening a thin gold necklace around her neck. Her hair was loose today, falling over her shoulders. She wore a simple white blouse and a long black skirt. No bright colors. No designer logos. Just peace. There had been a message under her door when she woke up. Please join us for a small gathering. Glen Hill Town Hall. 10 a.m. Signed, Ben Carter.
She didn't know what to expect.
But she trusted Ben. By 10 o'clock, Lady stood once again in front of the same red brick building she had walked into 2 nights ago. This time, something felt different. Lighter. Inside, about 30 people sat in folding chairs arranged in neat rows. Some she recognized, old classmates, a few teachers, neighbors. And there, near the front, sat Ben. His eyes found hers, and he gave a small nod. She walked quietly down the aisle and stood at the front. Tasha Green sat near the middle, eyes lowered, hands tightly wrapped around a tissue. She looked nothing like the loud, confident girl from before. Her makeup was soft, her face pale. Lady took a deep breath, turned to the room, and began to speak. I came back to Glen Hill with no plan to speak, she said, her voice calm but steady. I didn't want attention. I didn't want applause. I didn't even want to be remembered. The room was silent. I left this town carrying shame, silence, and memories I never wanted to revisit. I carried the weight of your laughter, your names, your jokes. Some people lowered their eyes. But I also carried something else, she continued. I carried kindness. From Mr. Graham's bread. From a boy named Ben, who shared his lunch. And I carried hope that I could become more. She paused, then looked out the window where raindrops were beginning to fall. Now I stand here not just as the girl you once ignored, or mocked, or forgot. I stand here as a woman who has found peace. I've built companies. I've traveled the world. I've made more money than I ever dreamed. Gasps moved through the crowd. Whispers followed. But none of it has healed me as much as this moment, right now. She turned to Tasha. You hurt me the most. You made me feel invisible. Tasha's lip trembled. She stood up slowly. Her voice cracked. I'm sorry, she whispered. I was cruel. I was jealous. And I thought if I laughed at you, I'd feel better about myself. But I didn't. Not then. Not now. Tears rolled down her cheeks. I'm so sorry. Lady looked at her, eyes soft. I forgive you. The words were simple, but they fell like thunder in the quiet room. I forgive all of you, she continued. Not because you asked, but because I need to. Because I've carried enough. And it's time to let it go. Outside, the rain finally began to fall. Soft and slow, like a blessing. And I didn't come back for revenge. I came to give. She smiled now. I'm starting something here in Glen Hill. A tech center. A library. Jobs, training, support. Because I remember what it's like to need a second chance. The room was still. Then someone began to clap. Then another. And another. The room rose to its feet, not in celebration, but in deep, honest respect. Ben stood silently at the side, smiling. Later, as people began to leave, many wiping tears, others offering hugs, Tasha walked up to Lady again. I don't deserve your kindness, she said. Lady replied softly, maybe not. But kindness isn't about who deserves it. It's about who needs it. Outside, as she stepped into the rain, Lady lifted her face to the sky. It wasn't cold. It was cleansing. She had come home, not to prove her worth, but to release the past. And at last, after all the years, all the silence, and all the storms, she felt free. That brings us to the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you do, kindly subscribe to my channel, like, and share to your friends and loved ones. Also comment what you feel about the story under the comment section. Thanks for watching.